All right. It's so good not to see you. I'm Rick Donlon. I'm really super glad you're here. We've been planning for a long time. We've been praying for a long time. Everything does rise and fall to some degree at least. Can you say everything and then say to some degree at least? Everything rises and falls on leadership. And so if you're in the audience today, whatever time it is, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and you've ever been on the board of directors for CCHF, I'd like you to stand if you would, please. Yeah. So stay standing if you would for a minute. I got the honor of doing that 10 years ago myself. People serve for 5 years. It's a little bit hard to do. You've got to travel a couple times a year, commit time to meetings, there's committees, but it's also an amazing fraternity, sorority, brotherhood, sisterhood of the people who love CCHF and have made it happen for years. So the people that you see here are standing. I'm grateful to all of them. I'm grateful for the board that we have now. And I want some of you to think aspirationally who are not standing, like maybe there's a time where I could be a CCHF board member also. We'll have some openings in the next couple of years. Present board members, if you will remain standing, past board members, have a seat if you would. We do rotate people off. That's a good practice to have revolving board members. We've got 3 this year. Present board members, come on up if you would, who are leaving after their 5 years of service. Come on. Come on. You don't want to come up? What's that? No. I want all the board to come up here. Yeah, please. Sorry. Communications. Yeah. All right. Many hours of being together, every meeting, because of the wisdoms of the chair, we go over the mission and values, we go over the important things for CCHF. So Daniel is our present board chair. Yeah, there he is. But this is the present board. Please applaud them if you don't mind. And, yeah. So Magdalena, where are you? Come on. Is she not? She's hiding in the baggage like Saul. Magdalena is not here? Wow. Okay. I did see her parole officer earlier, so something good. If you're new to me, that was a joke. That was is Brianna here? Come on. All right. And where's Dr. Lisa Green? Is she left? Okay, great. This is going really well. All right. So we're just gonna put Brianna on our shoulders and carry her out. They're all amazing and wonderful and wise. Brianna, I think most of us would say might be the best among us. Yeah. She will blush and deny it, but last night at our leadership summit, I actually heard 2 people saying that next year we should get WWBD, what would Brianna do? Do you believe that? Yes. All right. Well, she's the chair. She also was the chair when we had the transition. She was a dear friend of Steve's. I count her a dear friend also. So we're grateful for her, for Magdalena, who's not here. Lisa had to leave. Outgoing board members, let's give them a round of applause. And, yeah. All right. Come give her a hug and everybody and just, can you get on your shoulders? Is it possible? If we could get a mosh pit right here. Okay. All right. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Give her some love. Can I give you this? Yeah, thank you. All right. I do want you to leave. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I do. I'm sorry. We went over this. All right, before I talk to you a little bit more in earnest, I have a couple things I didn't want to forget to say. The evaluations that Woody mentioned, they are really important to us. We did them old school with paper last year, but myself and multiple members of our staff went through every single evaluation. When we're trying to put together the content and we're thinking about the speakers, it really helps us if people who are sitting in those meetings, the workshops, at the time that you're there, you're not going to, Woody suggested you go home and write excellent prose. I don't think that's probably going to happen, but like the more times we get evaluations, the more helpful it is. So please think about that. I want those of you who are extroverted to go to 11, and the introverts, bring it up a little bit if you can. The greatest thing about the CCHF gathering is meeting other people and the exchanges over the many years I've been. Just be out there, talk to people. If you see somebody you don't know, introduce yourself. This is a low entry, easy to enter community. We want it to be that way. And so please get out of bed and get to the first. It's really important that you go to Bible study at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. That again was a joke, sort of. But all right, couple other things. Please try to get those 85 shirts left. The people who are displaying are our partners and they're our friends, and they're here because they want to spend time with you, and there's tons of great opportunities there, so make the rounds. Lastly, we're going to take a little switch this year on what we call late night, which is the event that happens this evening. And so we've got these two musicians that you heard earlier from Nashville. The young man's name is David Donlon. Could be related to Rick Donlon, I'm not sure. They have some band members, and so we're gonna have live music tonight. We're gonna have a broad range of some desserts for you also, and we're gonna have something new, which may be the first of many of my bad ideas, but we're gonna have competitive dodgeball. Yeah. I need a few physicians to sign up for, there will be rules. We bought the non-sting balls, we really did. No headshots. We're not allowing CFOs to get on the court because everybody would try to, All right, so come to late night and dance. We're gonna have great time, and hope we'll see you there. Okay, maybe if I could transition to my first slide. Yeah, welcome to the CCHF. Welcome to our new slightly altered colors. Welcome to our new website if you haven't seen it lately. Welcome or welcome back. And I want to just very briefly tell you about myself. 44% of you have never been to this conference before. And so that means 56% of you have heard all my stories before, but that's okay. I had a very dramatic conversion to Christianity. I grew up in a faithful Catholic family. My late parents were faithful, but I grew up in New Orleans in the 1970s, and there was a different religion on the streets at that time. There are many cultural Catholic people in New Orleans. I was one of those. Secretly, even the Southern Baptist preachers in New Orleans are Catholic because it's a very Catholic culture. But when I do this, it means it was a joke. That's how we'll clarify that for you. I didn't have any interest in God or anything other than my pleasures. I was frankly harmful to myself. I'm ashamed to think the difficulties I put my late parents through, the unkindness I showed to many people, the evil intent I had towards young ladies, just a long list of things. And so when people began to talk to me about Jesus when I was 17 years old, for some reason, suddenly it was like a light switch went off. And I was previously uninterested in things about God or the Bible. I tried to read the Bible some and didn't make sense to me. I even had an aversion really to those things. And then suddenly they were super interesting to me. And I had a time of exploring I still have a great deal of respect for Catholicism, but I became a Protestant, and I made the decision knowing I was going to have a very different life after that. And one of the sort of night and day sort of conversion stories. I went to college, became a pre-med, came back to New Orleans. We had a small Christian group of students at LSU Medical School in New Orleans. I joke again, like it was the Protestant Christian groups. There was like 8 people in it, and all I had to do was swing like 4 votes, and I got elected president of the group for the second year. But I made what I tell people was a blood pact with these 3 other people that you see on the screen when we were 23 years old. I'm telling this story primarily for the young people in the room, the 140 or so of you who are students or residents. We decided as first-year medical students that we would be Jesus doctors together when we finished. And a first-year medical student is the stupidest thing on the planet Earth. Only thing stupider is a second-year medical student. Yeah. You know if you know, right? New Orleans is a kind of rowdy voodoo kind of place. So a blood pact is you cut yourself, your friend cuts yourself, and the 2 people rub the blood together, and that means you're going to be Jesus doctors together. Or the other blood part, you've heard this before, but like if anybody backed out, the other 3 would kill that person. So the most remarkable part of our story, I think, is that we all, in 1990, we graduated from medical school and we left the city of New Orleans. We left Louisiana and we went to residency training programs at 4 different places. 2 in Alabama. I went to Memphis. Karen Miller went to Atlanta, Georgia. And even though this is a time of life when you're making big life decisions about where you're going to live and if you're going to get married and what you're going to do, like even apart, we stayed connected. And when our training finished up, we got together. It took us a while. Part of our planning included coming to my first CCHF conference in 1993. It was in Chicago. It was a heady time. CCHF had been only formed in the very late 1970s. I had heard about these people who were doing healthcare for the poor across the country. I'd heard about this place called Lawndale. Some of these practices had been started before that. And I went to I don't even remember, it was a church. We were down in the basement. Like in my mind, as I tell a story, I think we're eating granola, probably. And there was this accessibility because people who had started these clinics in Rochester, New York, or in Pittsburgh, Chicago, Philadelphia, Crossroad here in Cincinnati had started just the year before we showed up as residents at that time. And people were willing to talk to me and us about what we were planning to do. And that's what I really hope is available to everyone here too. And the barrier of connection and entry to this community, we want it to be low. We want people who have these aspirations in their heart to come here and get those fires ignited. So I hope you're going to do that, young folks. This is the day we got our sign. If you can imagine making a pledge with deadly intent with your friends in 1986, like, I guess it was more like 87, when the sign showed up and the clinic opened, it was a big deal. Really big deal. So, almost through talking about me in Memphis, but this is a map that I show almost all the time when I speak. It's a map by a demographer named, what's his name, Eric? It'll come to me in a minute, but he studies race. And so the dots you see on this map, each dot's 25 people. The blue dots are 25 black people, red dots are 25 white people, the yellow dots are Latino people. I joke that there's like 40 Asians in Memphis. And so they're actually curing cancer at St. Jude is where they're on the map, but yeah. But you can see the obvious racial separation in the city that I've lived in for 35 years. And if you have any insight into this, where you see blue, health disparities are much worse. Diseases come earlier or more deadly, everything, all but one. Oddly enough, you're less at risk of dying by suicide if you're African American in my city, but every other form of cancer, heart disease, infant mortality, maternal mortality, all worse. all worse in the African American community. There actually are enough medicine people, doctors, dentists, every kind of healthcare provider for the city, for Shelby County, for Memphis. But where do you imagine almost all of them are located? Someone said money. Who said that? Detmer said money. I didn't think that was one of the choices, but he's jumping the gun. He's implying that this noble profession that we're a part of, medicine, might be driven largely by money, and I'm offended at that. It's more complicated than that, but it's not less complicated than that. And many of us, myself included, wrote essays to get into professional school saying things like, well, I want to relieve suffering and I want to be part of a solution to these kind of problems. I want to help address disparities, but it's super hard to do that. And the harsh reality is that where you see red, doctors are competing with doctors to get patients, and where you see blue, patients compete with patients hoping to get doctors. And CCHF was born out of people saying in their hearts, that's not right. That's not the kingdom of Jesus. Detroit, to me, that's astounding. There's a single Polish community that you can see there in the middle and again, we're going to hear from a CEO from a health center in Detroit this evening, like the health disparities in that city are similar. We've got another plenary speaker on Saturday, Robert Record, in Birmingham, Alabama, looks like this. Again, everywhere in our country, including in rural settings, which are harder to depict with these kind of visuals, racial minorities suffer health consequences much worse than the majority population. So Christ Community, the name of the organization that we founded, grew, and we had a second iteration of it that we don't have much time to talk about. This was these people needed more medication, apparently, or they were a really fun group too. Where you see the crosses is where we opened health centers. The health centers are still open with Christ Community, and then the three places where we have the R's are where other locations were open. So this is just, I hope you won't misunderstand the spirit in which this is given, but 4 yahoos from Louisiana and a group of other people who came largely because of the influence of CCHF, like we made a significant difference in the primary care situation for the low-income members of our entire city. And yeah, okay. I hate it when people applaud me. And this is, I'll tap beforehand, this is the joke, like this is people from Louisiana. Y'all know people from Louisiana? So I'm certain you can do better. All right, let's talk about this. I am 100% responsible for this promotion. Jason Stevens, who's a brilliant artist and a dear friend, helps with these designs, but if you don't like it, and I've heard from some of you that you don't, it's my fault. I think most people are kind of concerned, like, why is there a giant monster? I didn't tell Jason to put the monster in there, but yeah. The monster's there because it's just a picture of things that make us afraid. And, I want this to be the focus on it, and maybe it's too simple, but we can be part of, even in the midst of fear and all the difficult things that are going on, bringing light and hope. And so that's the idea. If you've got a better idea for next year, you can keep it to yourself. All right, in general, I want to confess, like, I am a fearful person. This is a gift that one of my daughters gave me. She knows that about 300 plus times in the Bible, there are some phraseology, fear not, or do not fear, be not afraid. And she knows her dad's given her anxiety, and so she made this for me, and I love it. It's in my office. As I've traveled, not just in the last year plus as I've been leading CCHF, but for a number of years, it seems like there's a lot to be afraid of. It seems like things are getting worse. This may not be the most critical thing to all of you, but Healthcare has increasingly been taken over by people who are largely driven by profit margins. And so this is from the New England Journal of Medicine. Corporate ownership has resulted in financial returns being prioritized over patient care, undermined local control and accountability, eroded the service-oriented ethics of the medical profession. Early studies have revealed that prices often rise after private equity acquisitions in healthcare. So when I was coming out of medical school a long time ago, the majority of physicians work for other physicians or for themselves, the large majority, and now it's a much smaller minority. And that means if we're employed by health systems or universities or others, like, we don't have the influence that we once had and the capacity to advocate for the poor the way that maybe we could have in an earlier era. You've all heard talks about burnout and difficulties. We've got, every place I go, people are asking me, can you get me a primary care doctor? Because people are feeling tired and they're burdened, and there's lots of things that are driving people crazy, and this is objectively true. The United States, according to this from Commonwealth, like, almost a majority of doctors in the United States are feeling burnt out, primary care doctors, which many of us are. Terrible, I don't know if that's the right word, really disturbing things happening in many of the communities that we live in. I live in a community that has a significant number of Latino people, and some of our cities, Chicago for sure, other places, we've seen our neighbors have to completely alter their lives. Deportations and struggles and people not accessing care, and that's made us afraid. I'm going to skip that. I don't even know what to say about the government right now. I'll say this. CCHF has always tried to engage with the government. I don't know if you know that or not. Like, when I joined, we were a part of during the Republican administration of George W. Bush, there was a Compassion Capital grant that CCHF managed to help people look at potentially entering the federal stream for our Christian clinics, and it was successful. I always worried years ago, like, if Christ Community in Memphis began to take federal money, like, certainly some federal officers would paratroop into our clinic and take all of our Bibles and make us change our name from Christian. The practice I used to have of requiring people to be baptized before they could be seen their first visit, that would go away. Yeah. Truth is, for many years, we never had any difficulties, either with our state of Tennessee people or the federal government. Now, as we visit, like, there's, in one sense, the administration seems to be welcoming to faith people and talking about want to be supportive of what we're doing. And on the other hand, some of their policies are just absolutely upside down from our historical points of view. But younger people, increasingly anxious. I've been meeting with medical students. There's a couple here this conference in my living room. Okay, that didn't sound like George or Caleb, but you're just shouting out for medical students? Okay, that's good. Medical school the pandemic just made it worse. Like, students are less in the rooms together in lecture halls. They're learning sometimes in their pajamas at 2x speed or plus on their computers. There are actually, believe this or not, medical students who are in schools that largely have pass-fail curricula who are learning medicine, not from the faculty of their school, but from the other sources that are preparing them for board exams and things like that. It's like, it's tough, and they're anxious. And they're anxious about politics, and they're anxious about the future. This is a CMDA conference. Jesse Thomas took this photo. I wonder if you can notice what I want you to notice in this picture. What do you all see? What's that? What did you say? She's in the picture? Okay, what do I want you to notice about the picture? There's like one dude. He's happy back there. Yeah. Okay. So honestly, there seems to be a shortage of men who are interested in fewer, perhaps, than in the past. There's wars, terrible wars, wars that we hear about and wars that we're not hearing so much about in Sudan and places like that. There's gross polarization, families and churches being divided because of the heartfelt and angry positions and unwillingness to hear. Like, if it's one thing I long for and treasure about CCHF, and I hope is going to go forward, is like, this is a wide tent. And there are people here who have different points of view. And like, even if I think this is Christian teaching, even if someone says something in a workshop or from a plenary stage that you disagree with, like, even if they're wrong, you have to love them. We have to love them, right? Yeah. Okay. So I have more than once been in a CCHF workshop or sitting in the plenary audience, and someone has said something like, I'm not sure that's right, but like, I hardly ever threw a stone at them, and I hope we won't either. So there are going to be people who are going to tell us hard truths. That's called prophecy, right? That's when someone hears from the Lord and gets up in your grill, and often we don't like it. CCHF is by design a prophetic organization. So hear each other, love each other, be willing to exchange ideas even if you don't completely agree. I'm not smart enough to understand AI, but every time I watch an interview with someone who does understand AI, they think the Terminator is probably already in the building. Yeah, that one did not get a laugh. So these are all issues. Many people are deconstructing their Christian faith. Don't have time to talk about that. So that's why there's a monster. That's why we designed a monster. And I want to go now in the 20-ish or so minutes that I have left to the Bible to talk to you about fear and that sort of thing. And I want to go to a really weird place, okay? We talked at the Executive Summit a little bit about books we do and don't like in the Bible. And I want to confess, I love the Bible, love the Bible. Book of Judges is maybe the weirdest, I don't know. It's up there. There's just some crazy stories that are really crazy. And they bear meditation and instruction. So I want to go to this book that's about the cyclical rebellion and rescue of the nation of Israel. And this is sort of the verse that you have to understand to read the book. In those days, Israel had no king. Everyone did as they saw fit. And that's certainly the description of some of these crazy stories. So I'm going to talk about the story of Gideon. The Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and for 7 years he gave them into the hands of the Midianites. Just want to lead with, there's some culpability here, and it's not God's. So I have these fake mathematical things to help me make my points to you, but I want you to see the connection, like human rebellion, which is the nature of the world, has consequences. Because the power of Midian was so oppressive, the Israelites prepared shelters for themselves in mountain clefts, caves, and strongholds. Whenever the Israelites planted their crops, the Midianites, Amalekites, and other eastern people invaded the country. So you guys understand this. This is an agrarian culture. You're dependent upon your ability to grow food. You're dependent on the elements to help you do that. And the picture is more powerful people are coming from outside, waiting for us to plant and then taking what we have. And it's so bad that we're having to hide ourselves in fear. They camped on the land and ruined the crops, did not spare a living thing for Israel, neither sheep nor cattle nor donkeys. They came up with their livestock and their tents like swarms of locusts. It was impossible to count them or their camels. They invaded the land to ravage it. So I hope you hear the language, how bad things are. These are locusts, East Africa. This is the Midianites and the Amalekites descending on the property and well-being. Midian so impoverished the Israelites that they cried out to the Lord for help. So this is a really important thing. I hope it's instinctive for us, like when it's really bad, the right thing to do is to cry out to God. He hears, right? When the Israelites cried out to the Lord because of Midian, he sent them a prophet who said, this is what, you see him pointing, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel says, I brought you up out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. I rescued you from the hand of the Egyptians, and I delivered you from the hand of all your oppressors. I drove them out before you and gave you their land. I said to you, I'm the Lord your God. Do not worship the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you live, but you have not listened to me. So just in case you were having a thought in your head, like, what do those gods look like? On the left there is Baal. On the right is Ashtoreth. So Ashtoreth is a female fertility goddess. Baal's god of storm and other things, local deities. So the prophet's message, the people of Israel cry out in their suffering, and God sends first a prophet. And he doesn't promise them anything, does he? He first sets the record straight. I loved you. I was faithful to you. I have been with you before. I've rescued you over and over again, and you've turned away from me. So the prophet didn't have really much encouraging news, and the story goes here next. The angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah that belonged to Joash the Abiezrite. Some of you who've been in the book of Genesis recently know there's this strange thing, like sometimes as humans are having an encounter from God, it's an angel, and sometimes it's the Lord, and sometimes like in the same sentence, it seems to be the same thing. And I don't have the abstract capacity to understand that fully, but a messenger from God comes and stands below this tree, and there's this guy, Gideon, threshing wheat in a wine press under cover to hide from the invaders. So he's just trying to survive and trying to get a little bit of food for himself. And this angel shows up and starts talking to him. He apparently doesn't know that he's an angel, because if you read your Bible, every time an angel shows up, what's the first thing that people do? They wet their pants, mostly, yeah. They're terrified, that's right. And we're gonna see Gideon does get terrified later, but I love art, and I don't think Gideon saw a guy in a choir robe with wings, but when the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, the Lord is with you, mighty warrior. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. Coward that you are, bending down in this place trying to save a little food, Lord is with you. Pardon me, my Lord, Gideon replied, but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all his wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt? Now, we just heard language about God reaffirming that he did bring them up from Egypt, but Gideon is doing something that I hope all of us know how to do right now. What's this called? This is lamenting, right? Lamenting, where you can honestly call out to God when things are terrible and demand an explanation. If there's a line between grumbling and lamenting, it's pretty thin. But a lamenter still has a belief, I think, in the Lord and his ability to rescue and save and his goodness, but has some business with the Lord. Like, how long is it going to be like this? Why are you allowing me to be humiliated? Why are we being defeated? Where are all these promises we heard about? Where's your faithfulness? Can God handle that? Yeah. Grumbling? Let's all make the grumbling noise. Grumbling, the best example from the book of Exodus is, why did God bring us out here to kill us? It would have been better for us to die somewhere else. You better get back on the lament side, brother, because that's not allowed, I don't think. Looking at all of the hardship and difficulties that I tried to enumerate for you with immigration and the progress of medicine and the political situations and wars, like, we are allowed to say, Lord, what is this? Where are these promises that we heard? Like, Why is it so hard to do this job and to do this work? It's right and just to do it. Is God required to give you an answer? He's not. But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian. That's the end of the lamenting. Not necessarily required to get an answer, or sometimes it's an answer that you wouldn't anticipate, because this is what the angel said. He gave him a commandment instead. Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you? Now, maybe Gideon said, could we go back to my question? But that's not what God did. And it's because he's kind and gracious. You can think of over and over again in the Bible where people are just at their wits' end. Elijah under the broom tree, like, they're trying to kill me. I don't want to live anymore. And God says, Elijah, why are you here? Gives him an assignment. All right, so again, if you've got your Bible brain on and you're going to recognize this pattern that comes up. Here's what Gideon has to say. You might think that he was like, oh, great, the Lord's given me this assignment to go in my strength, but pardon me, my Lord, how can I save Israel? My clan's the weakest in Manasseh, that's his tribe, and I'm the least in my family. So I think if you don't want to do something, you can probably use hyperbole about how little you are, but Gideon may have been telling the truth. It is sort of the way God works in his upside-down kingdom. He goes for the least, right? And so Gideon's argument, like Moses's centuries before, is like, I'm not capable of doing this. I don't have what it takes. The Lord answered, I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites. So Gideon does what any self-respecting Jew would do. He asks for a sign from God. And there's precedent for this, right? Most of the major promises God makes in the Bible, there is a sign. The rainbow's in this picture to remind you that God promised Noah he would never again cover the world. Like, here's a sign of the proof of it. If I found favor in your eyes, give me a sign. It's really you talking to me. He's not sure, maybe. Don't go away until I come back and bring you my offering and set it before you. So he runs and gets he gets a goat, he gets a lot of grain and makes unleavened bread, and he brings it back to this rock underneath this oak tree where this person's been talking to him. And the angel says, put the meat there and pour the broth over it and the bread, and he touches it with his staff and the whole thing goes up in flames, and then the angel disappears. There it is. Fire flared up from the rock, consuming the meat and the bread. The angel of the Lord disappeared. So now, Gideon says, he realizes that it was an angel of the Lord. Alas, I've seen the angel of the Lord face to face. I'm going to die. But the Lord said to him, I thought the angel left. The Lord said to him, peace. Don't be afraid. You're not going to die. So he makes an altar there and he calls it, the Lord is peace. And to this day, at least at the writing of Judges, it stands in Ophrah of the Abirzites. It's a memorial of God's speaking. That same night, the plot's going to now pick up. The Lord said to him, take the second bull from your father's herd, the one 7 years old, tear down your father's altar to Baal, and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. And so we got to ask a question like, hey, Dad, what's up with that? How is it that Gideon's father has an altar to Baal and an Asherah pole next to it? It's because Gideon's father's an idolater. And it's not just Gideon, it's apparently the whole area. We're going to talk about that in just a second. But he's got a problem now. He's got an angel telling him to do something he doesn't think he can do, and he's going to have to start by disobeying his father. After you've torn down the Baal and torn down the Asherah pole, build a proper kind of altar to the Lord, your God, on the top of this height. Using the wood of the Asherah pole that you cut down, offer the second bull as a burnt offering. So we're going to tear down this idolatrous altar, and we're going to build a proper altar to the Lord on top of it, and we're actually going to use the wood of this idol to offer a sacrifice to God. All right, so this is Lincoln Financial Stadium. I was expecting the Philadelphia people to react to that a little more strongly. All right, so Philly people, I want you to imagine that there's your stadium to the Philadelphia Eagles, and you wake up one morning and somebody painted a big Dallas Cowboy thing. Oh, these are Cowboys fans? I didn't anticipate that. I work at a VA hospital a few days a month as an ER doctor, and there's invariably a vet will come in with a star on his hat, Dallas Cowboy hat, and I'll say, "Sir, I think the first thing I need to do is get you a New Orleans Saints hat. Would that be okay? Get rid of that trash on your head." They don't really like that usually. But. All right, what would happen in Philly if somebody painted the Cowboys all over your stadium? The Philadelphia fans are famous for being violent, aren't they? They would not be happy. So Gideon took 10 of his servants and did as the Lord told him, but because he was afraid of his family and the townspeople, he did it at night rather than the daytime. Is this a picture of courage? It's not. Now, it's a bigger job than I thought as I was reflecting on this. Like, do you really need 11 people? Like, how big was this Asherah pole? But it must have been a big deal. But he did it at night. He was afraid. In the morning, when the people got up, there was Baal's altar demolished with the Asherah pole beside it cut down. And the second bull sacrificed on the newly built altar. They asked each other, "Who did this?" And when it comes out that it was Gideon, his dad Joash replied to the hostile crowd, "Are you going to plead Baal's case? Are you trying to save Baal? If Baal's really a god, he can defend himself when someone breaks down his altar." So I want to make this point. It's not the main point of the story. It may not even be a good point I can make out of the story, but it's an observation I've made. Like, as I've watched in our community over the years, both domestically and internationally, when younger people will defy their father or mother, defy is a strong word, but when they'll take a direction in their careers, where they're living, what they're doing with their lives for the glory of God, even if the parents are initially opposed to it, in time, many, many times, not always, those opponents become proponents. They see the faithfulness of their kids, and they watch it for time, and they are won over by the behavior of their children. And I've seen that in Memphis and other places many, many times. Our obedience can reverse some of this apparent poison that had happened, in this family at least, and the idolaters now have a place, altar to the Lord, where there was idolatrous worship before. So Dad stepped up, right? Now, all the Midianites, Amalekites, and other eastern peoples joined forces and crossed over the Jordan and camped in the valley of Jezreel. Then the Spirit of the Lord came on Gideon, and he blew a trumpet, summoning the Abuzarites to follow him. So again, this is his clan, so a relatively small number of people. Trumpets are used for battle. They're part of an important feast in the Jewish year. Like, they're calling people, and he's calling folks to get ready for war. I want you to notice that the Holy Spirit, which came upon him, did you catch that? Didn't happen until he'd taken some measure of obedience. After he called people to battle, blew the trumpet, is when the Spirit came on him. He sent messengers throughout Manasseh, his larger tribe, calling them to arms, and also to Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, neighboring tribes. So he's widening his call. They all went up to meet him. And now he's really ready, right? He's full of strength. But if you know the story well, you know that this is where he's still chicken. And he asks for the double sign of the fleece. Do you remember the story? I hope you do, because we're not going to really review it. But even after speaking with an angel and seeing that, and even after having the Spirit in him, and even after hearing from the Lord and being directed to do things, he's still scared. He's still asking for proof from the Lord, a twofold proof with this fleece. Early in the morning, Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all his men camped at the spring of Harod. The camp of Midian was north of them in the valley near the hill of Morah. The Lord said to Gideon, "You have too many men. I cannot deliver Midian into their hands, or Israel would boast against me. My own strength has saved me. I just don't think that we can miss this point. Like the paradox here of this least person who is least ready and least faithful is going to be called to do something, and still it's God's concern that people don't think that they're all that he is going to be shown to be the deliverer because he is the deliverer. This whole chain of events that he began, they were begun by God, not by Gideon. Gideon wasn't on a 40-day fast calling on the Lord, right? We know that the Israelites were calling out to the Lord, but there's no sign of repentance. When the prophet accused them of idolatry, they didn't throw off their idols. At least we don't hear that in the story. God is driving all of this, and that's really good news. All right, so more faux math. God's glory is super more important than human weakness. God actually gets glory through human weakness. The nature of sin, did I just echo? That's kind of cool. The nature of sin is to take ourselves from below and move up to the top. Jesse, what should I do? Maybe you fixed it. That sounds good. Think back to the second page of the Bible. Like, did God really say that if you eat this fruit, you die? You won't die. He's trying to hold you back. You'll be like God. We're going to be strongest and most effective when we're always reticent to be glory seekers. When we have success, and we've had some success, some places more than others, like there's a grave danger of attributing it to ourselves and not realizing that no matter what, from the beginning to the end, this is God acting. It's for him and his glory, and he deserves it. He's the one who's doing it all. All right, we really are getting close to the end. This is where God, in order to show that it's him and not the people, takes the 32,000 people from all of those tribes that we read about just a short time ago and says, anybody who's scared can go home. I don't recommend you do that at your health center on any given day. Okay. From 32,000 down to 10,000. And then there's the all-important, do you drink like a dog or not sign that gets them from 10,000 down to 300. 300 people versus, we learn later in the text, 135,000 Midianites. So this is a setting where God can get glory, where no one could, even people who watch Sparta movies or whatever, can't really take credit for something that's impossible to do unless it's the Lord doing it. So Gideon sent the rest of the Israelites home, but kept the 300 who took over the provisions and trumpets of the others. You'd think that now he's ready, but still he's not. He's still scared. If you're afraid to attack, God said to him, this is the final sign of reassurance to him, go down to the camp with your servant Purah and listen to what they're saying. Afterward, you'll be encouraged. So Gideon and a servant go to the camp of the Midianites within hearing distance, and they hear a conversation between two of their enemies. One has a dream where he sees a barley loaf of bread, a barley common loaf of bread, roll into the Midianite camp and destroy tents. And the other person interprets the dream. This could be nothing except the sword of Gideon and Israel. And Gideon hears this. And here's an AI picture of the world's largest dinner roll rolling into... Yeah, that is a big piece of bread. All right, so Gideon's finally got his gumption. He's ready to go. And this is, again, where he realizes, like, God is orchestrating all of this, even in the weakness. So I want to just wrap up the story. When Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, he bowed down and worshiped. bowed down and worshiped. He gave God glory, returned to the camp and called out, "Get up, the Lord's given the Midianite camp into your hands." He believes it. He's going to get his followers to believe it now. And they do this thing. Again, I couldn't find good pictures, but I don't fully understand the strategy. In one hand, you have a trumpet. In the other, you've got basically a clay pot with some sort of torch inside of it, probably smoldering with relative lack of air. And at just the right time, Gideon has them all smash the jars, hold up the flame, blow the trumpets. Are there weapons on these people? No. Are they marching forward? Are they going to headbutt people? There's nothing. They're holding a light and they're blowing a trumpet. And God throws the enemy into a panic. Sunday school pictures. While each man, Gideon's men, held his position around the camp, all the Midianites ran, crying out as they fled. When the 300 trumpets sounded, the Lord caused the men throughout the camp to turn on each other with their swords. And that's how the battle was won. Thus Midian was subdued before Israel and did not raise its head again. During Gideon's lifetime, the land had peace for 40 years. I've only gone through 2 of the 3 chapters about Gideon in the book of Judges. The third is heartbreaking. Gideon takes some gold from the victory, makes an idol that becomes a snare for Israel. He has way too many children, and later on in the story, they are actually all murdered in a power grab. It's like super disheartening because it's about humanity. And you might say to yourself, like, what's Christian about this story that Rick made us listen to? And I think there's much. And I just want to close reiterating a few of these points. Like, the world is broken. There are 8 billion human beings, all of whom are generally inclined to seek their own glory and good and are willing to hurt and harm other people in the course of it. And therefore, humanity acts in the way that we read in the story and the way that we see in our world. Lamenting is the right thing to do, to call out to the Lord, to find solace in the promises of God, even when we don't see them, and to maintain faithfulness and to learn to live in the brokenness of lament, knowing that God is working in ways we don't understand. And we might not ever get the answers that we expect. It may not ever make full sense to us the way things happen, but God's ruling. That often we should take our suffering and act and hear from the Lord and ask for him to tell us what to do in response to the difficulties, even if we don't have the answers. You could influence your family or other people in your realm by your faithfulness. Full stop. And then often, not always, obedience precedes power from the Holy Spirit. Lastly, I think the main point you all have gotten from the story is that God sees, God understands, despite human frailty, despite the cowardice of human beings, the persistent failures, the lack of faithfulness, he remains faithful. And the Christianist thing about this is, when we look at all of these judges or we look at all of these other failed leaders in the Bible and we realize, like, the only way for human weakness to reach into God's glory is if God goes into humanity. The incarnation is the answer to our brokenness. Like, there's no other solution except God became flesh and dwelt among us and did what we could never do, was what we could never be. The righteousness of Jesus is put on us, and the wickedness of us is put on him. This is the mystery of the new life and the transformation of humanity, that beginning of the breaking forward of the kingdom of God. And we, in a broken, difficult world where we're never probably going to win, we get to be the vanguard of the coming of Jesus' kingdom, primarily by seeing and loving the people at the margins of our culture who are most harmed by the world around us. It is a noble cause. and it gives glory to God, and it's reason for us to not be afraid.